Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest of our French webinars. My name is Eva. It is my second time hosting, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. In today's webinar, we're going to be looking at where to start with buying in France, part one. I'm joined today by a panel of three experts from our partners at Leggett Immobilier, Société de Courtage, and Moneycorp, and I will introduce you to all of them in just a moment. For those of you that are not familiar with French Entree, they are part of the France Media Group and have been a leading resource for French property buyers and expats for more than 20 years now, providing a host of free resources, weekly newsletters, French property listings over at FrenchEntrée.com, as well as putting out regular video content on YouTube. They also have the French Entree member service, which provides extra help and guidance during your journey of buying property and moving to France. We have two levels of membership. The first one is Essential, which allows you access to our exclusive members content, everything you need for buying your property. And then we have our Plus membership, in which you'll have more personal guidance for property and our relocation advisors. If you want to find out more, or if you're already ready to become a member, you can do that at FrenchEntrée.com/members, and we'll also pop that link in the chat box for you now. Coming up in May, you can actually catch the French Entree team at the International Property Show in Miami. It will be from May 9th through May 11th. And again, we'll add a link for that. You can get complimentary tickets and a link to book a time to meet with the French Entree team. Société de Courtage will also be exhibiting at that show. We'll send further information in the follow-up mailer so that you'll be able to get in touch with our speakers. Now that that's done, let's jump into today's webinar. We'll be looking at where to start with buying in France. We're aiming for a runtime of about 1 hour, and each of our speakers are going to give a short presentation, after which I'll be putting some of your questions through to them. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel of experts. A huge thank you to each and every one of you for giving up your time to join us today. We'll kick it off with Joanna Leggett from Leggett Immobilier. She'll be speaking about the property market, property types and regions, and her top tips and advice for finding a property. Joanna, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joanna Leggett. So I'm one of the partners at Leggett Immobilier. We're a real estate agent based in France, and I'm just going to take you through to our presentation so we can give you some information on what we do. So as you can see, our website is leggettfrance.com. We advertise also with French Entree, and we work with French Entree a lot. And we're also partners now with Hamptons International, which is another real estate agency which has offices worldwide. So about us, so we have been working with Americans for over 20 years. We were founded in 1998 when my husband first started the company. What's quite interesting is in the last sort of couple of months, we've noticed that actually out of all the international inquiries and sales that we've made, over 44% now are from the USA. We have 16 regional offices based in Paris, Nice, Bordeaux, Saint-Emilion, Carcassonne, and we have over 7,500 properties for sale. We have 650 agents licensed with Leggett, with ourselves, and they all live and work in their areas. So they'll give you local knowledge that you can trust. You can ask any of them. You can contact them on a property. They will have visited the property, and they will give a hand-holding service to help you with your search. We also have a bilingual team in-house. So we frequently use now e-signatures, and we can do virtual tours, and we have drone tours, etc. And we're specialists because we've been established for so long in some of the prestige real estate. So we are very good with chateaus, country houses, beautiful villas on the coast. But we also do the sort of very small €50,000 barn conversions and little properties in village. We have alliances with tax companies, visa companies, Moneycorp, who are with us today, with Kelly, and mortgages companies like Thomas here today. So we have specialists in all departments that can help you every step of the way. So at the moment, where do Americans buy? Well, Paris is still the big favorite with Americans, and we sell a lot of properties to Americans from our Paris office. So they're used to dealing with helping you get your visas, helping you, putting you in touch with the right people, telling you the best areas, because Paris is quite big and the areas vary quite different, they're quite different depending on where you are. Also in the Côte d'Azur, the French Riviera, that's always been popular with the Cannes Film Festival, and sort of great big events like that. The Alps, which I was quite surprised at more recently, we've been seeing a lot of American buyers, considering that you have such great skiing in the States, are actually coming to the French Alps. And we have seen Courchevel and Maribel being particularly popular with our American clients. The southwest of France has always been popular, just as much with us Brits, as and Dutch and Germans and a lot of nationalities, because it has so much heritage. You've got beautiful castles, you've got beautiful countryside. France is the biggest country in Western Europe, so you've got sunflower fields, you've got lavender fields. It's a really, really beautiful place to live. We also cover Bordeaux. We have a lot of vineyards for sale. So we have Saint-Emilion, where we have an office, and that's where you'll get the Saint-Emilion wine and the Bordeaux wine region. But also down in the Languedoc-Roussillon, which is really famous for the rosé wines, we have a team and an office down there as well that can help you with that. Brittany and Normandy, which is west and northern France, we again have big teams up there. If you're into equestrian, that's a great place for horses and equestrian properties. And Brittany is really, really pretty. A lot of Parisians have holiday homes in Brittany. It's on the west coast of France, but really, really lovely areas to be in. And if you do have a look on our website, you'll be able to get some information on those different areas as well as our own Leggett magazine. So different styles of property. There's all sorts of different styles that you can have a look at. Chateaus at the moment seem to be the biggest because there's so many TV programs saying escape to the chateau or DIY chateau. So there's a lot of interest in chateaus at the moment. We also do have a YouTube channel which you can have a look at. And we do have an American guide to buying in France on our YouTube channel. And we also do reports on different types of properties. So we can, go out and look at it and give you a full report before you even make your travel arrangements to come and see it. We have maisons de maîtres, which is like master's house. We have longères, which are long buildings. They're all sort of one level. We've got modern villas overlooking the sea or the Mediterranean or the Atlantic coast as well, with broadband nowadays. Didn't have it when I first moved to France. Ski chalets, we've got them in all prime locations. And of course, we've got fantastic apartments and Parisian apartments in Paris. So there's lots and lots of properties that are all very popular, with all nationalities, in fact. So what does your US dollar buy you? So this is to give you an average sort of cost in different areas. So if you're looking in Paris, you'd be looking at about 10,400 per square meter for a Paris apartment in a good location. In Courchevel, even more expensive. Courchevel is quite an expensive area, and you'd be looking at 13,500 per square meter. If you were looking in Cannes, you'd expect that to be very expensive on the French Riviera, but it's actually 6,200 per square metre and very rentable. I mean, all of those three areas are really good return on investment because you can rent those properties out all year round. In the Dordogne, if you're looking at rental, you're going to be looking April to September, not so much in the winter months, but again, it's a lot cheaper with sort of 1,500 per square metre dollars. And in Finisterre, 2,230. It's not too far from Paris, so it's a really good area to live. And again, you've got the Ord with $1,700 per square metre. All of these areas have access to Paris. If you look at the Dordogne, which is where I live, my local city is Angoulême, and it's 25 minutes from my house, and I live in the country, but I can be in Paris in 2 hours because the trains are really fast. I can be in Bordeaux in half an hour. So, don't feel that you have to be in Paris or you have to be in a city, because France is fantastic with its infrastructure on trains and rail and roads and planes. So you can easily get to other areas quite quickly. The state of the market, if we look at what's happening in the French property market at the moment, obviously there's been a lot of things that have affected it since COVID, since the wars. For us Brits, we've had Brexit. And, there's been political and economic uncertainty. However, France has always been an extremely extremely, should I say, it's very late for us over here, extremely safe place to buy. The whole buying process is extremely safe. You're totally protected as a buyer. And real estate, particularly in France, never really goes out of fashion. There's never any areas that have been particularly bad. And prime areas are always going to be popular with international buyers worldwide. And for tourism, it's actually one of the most visited countries in the world. So what it does mean is if you are buying a holiday home and you want to rent it out, as long as you're buying in a good area, then obviously you've got all year round, or you've got rentals from international buyers all year round. Last year, there were around 750,000 sales in France. It had slowed down with everything that was happening politically and economically, but now we're probably looking for this year coming at around 900,000 sales. So it is expected to go up. Prices have stabilized. They had dropped a little bit over the last 2 years, but we're starting to go, following the boom, which was COVID time when nothing was moving or selling, and then all of a sudden everything started moving. But now it's sort of stabilized out. But what there is a lack of stock. So there aren't enough homes to go round. So in the old days where it might take 6 months to sell a property, things are selling a lot quicker and there are more buyers for each one. So the process, if I was in your shoes and when I was in Britain doing exactly the same, do your research, look into the area that you want to buy, look at all the information, watch all the videos, ask your agents, read the magazines, etc. And because it is a buyer's market, once you know where you want to be, we can do video tours, for example. We nowadays with WhatsApp and technology, all agents can do that for you. And it is a buyer's market. So the way the process would work would be that you'd find the property and you'd make an offer. The agent would negotiate that with your vendor, and then you'd agree the price. You'd appoint a notaire. Usually the notaire that holds the deeds to the property would be the notaire that would look after the sale, because if it's, say, in a village, that notaire's probably dealt with that property through every generation that ever bought it, and they know the area and they know if things are going to be affected. So it's generally wise to keep the notaire that has the deeds. But if you choose to appoint another one, or you'd prefer somebody who was English speaking, that's not a problem to change. The notaire that holds the deeds would work with the new notaire that you had appointed. So then you'd make the offer's accepted. Then the vendor, the seller, would have to have the diagnostic tests done. So there's 5 tests that need to be done: termites, lead, paint, electrics, a septic tank report. That would all be done. And before you sign anything, you'd have a report made for you that can be translated. Us as an agency, we do translate those for you and give you a summary of what's expected. If you're happy with that, or there is a problem and you want to renegotiate your offer price, that has to all be done before you sign the compromis de vente. The compromis de vente is the exchange of contracts, and that's basically done at this stage. Once the vendor has signed that, they can't pull out. You as a buyer are protected because you have a 10-day cooling off period. So if you changed your mind in that 10 days or something happened, and you can pull out with no charge. The vendor, however, can't, and is tied in until completion. So there's no sort of gazumping that goes on there. So you also have suspensive clauses. So say, for example, you wanted to put in a swimming pool, you could apply for outline planning permission for that. And if it's refused, you could withdraw from the sale with no penalty clause. So at the time of compromis de vente, 10 days later, you pay your 10% deposit, and then approximately 3 to 4 months later, you sign the acte de vente, both parties sign the acte de vente, and you get your keys. So it's a very straightforward and easy process. If you are looking at getting a mortgage, and obviously we have Thomas here today who'll be able to help you with that, particularly for Americans, because he deals with Americans a lot of the time. Basically, you would have to put that as a suspensive clause, because if the mortgage was refused, then you can withdraw from the compromis. And the other thing I would say at the compromis de vente stage is to speak to your money broker. because the prices fluctuate. The dollar could go up and down before completion, which I'm sure Kelly's going to talk to you about. So this would be the time at the compromis de vente stage to speak to your money broker to make sure you secure your finances. Why do clients love France? Well, there's two. There's the history and there's the heritage. It is a fantastic. I've lived there for 22 years and I just wouldn't go back. The quality of life, the wine and cheese, particularly, and the baguettes. It is a lovely place. But the history of France, they look after their buildings. You can drive through the countryside and you just see these magnificent in our office is 800-year-old monastery. It's such a beautiful place to live. Stunning countryside. If you've ever watched the Tour de France, you'll see the bikes going through all over France. It really is a beautiful place to live. And there's bargain properties. There's properties for all price ranges. From a little, we've sold one recently for €21,000, which is probably about the same in dollars. And it's the other thing I'd say as well is, particularly in the countryside or the rural areas, everybody looks out for everyone. It's such a small communities. It's totally secure. There's very little crime, which means your insurance is quite low. In cities, it'll be the same as any cities in the world. But generally speaking, the countryside is a really wonderful place to live. And I'll end it there by saying liberty, egalit, can't even say it at this time of night, and fraternity is why we gave the Americans the Statue of Liberty, or the French did anyway. So thank you. And if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end, or you can email me or come on our website at leggettfrance.com. So thank you, Eva.
Thank you so much, Joanna. You gave us such a nice taste of France and you described the process so well. So thank you so much. We did have a question pop up for you, specifically the Normandy, Brittany area. They were asking how much does it cost per square foot in that area, if you know.
It would be the cost in that area is roughly the same as the Dordogne. It's not very expensive at all. So you'd be looking probably around, I can't remember the exact figure that was on the slide, but it's probably around the 1600, 1700. It's very, very similar to the Dordogne areas. So it's not expensive. Depending on the proximity, because Normandy, you can be an hour from Paris. So if you're in that sort of lower end of Normandy, the prices will go up because it's commutable for the city. But northern Normandy is roughly the same as what you would see in the Dordogne. An average sort of 3-bedroom home in Normandy, you'd probably be looking at around about €160,000, which would be euros. So in dollars, maybe roughly about the same. Kelly will be able to do that for me later. And sort of Dordogne is around about the same price. Whereas if you're looking for a 3-bedroom home in Cannes, you'd be looking at about 330,000. So there is a difference depending on what area you live in.
Okay. Perfect. And I do have another question for you. At what stage of the purchase process do I need to be in France? Can part of the process be carried out virtually?
Yes, this completely changed during COVID. 25% of our sales were done with never visiting France. They actually bought the property. That's in the old days, the notaires would never do any signings without you actually being in front of them. But since COVID days and the world's changed, you can do DocuSign now. So you actually don't have to be in France at all. However, you would probably need to have a notary in the country that you live in to sign in front of them, particularly if you're, Thomas will give you more information on this, but particularly if you were getting a mortgage. But realistically, we have, as I said, in COVID times, we did 25% sales where particularly Australians, which are the furthest away, they didn't literally see the property until they came over for the first time to pick up the keys. So it can be done.
Perfect. Thank you. And one more question from Barbara. Is negotiating a price typical?
What do you mean to negotiate? What would you go under or over, or
either the property price as listed? Do we have to take it as listed, or is there wiggle room to negotiate?
Yeah, there is always wiggle room. In the UK and Scotland, for example, where I've come from, you'd always offer over the asking price. In France, the mandated price that you see, the full asking price, is the full asking price. So you don't go over the mandate price, you would go under it. So you'd either offer full asking price, and then generally speaking, the vendor would have to accept that. Or you can put in, I would always talk to the agent because they would know the situation that the vendor's in. It might be an inheritance and there's 5 people, that have all got to sign and they all want the money quickly. So they may say, yeah, we'll take 10, 20% off. But I would speak to the agent because they'll know the situation, whether the house has been on the market a very long time, whether they just want to move on, whether there's a divorce involved. There's all sorts of different criteria of what reasons people would put offers in. Sometimes it may be that the vendors put a price on the property which the agent thinks is too high, and they would advise you of that. They'll give you documentation to show what sells in the area and why they think it might be slightly too high. But generally speaking, people put in sort of between 20% under at the maximum. But usually wiggle room, I'd say, would be about 10% under the asking price, depending on how many buyers. If it's priced correctly, you'll get 2 or 3 buyers on the same property, and then you have to go in at the asking price.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I guess that's exactly where working with a professional like yourself makes a big difference. I'm sure you can guide them through that. Joanna, thank you so much. There are a few more questions for you. If you can get to those when you can in the chat, in the Q&A section, and we'll continue on with Thomas. But thank you so much, Joanna.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Thomas Nivert with Société de Courtage. He's going to discuss French mortgages. He's going to chat about the current French mortgage market and what American buyers need to know about French mortgages and the options available. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Okay, superb. So, very pleased to be here, and it's a very nice transition. Thank you very much, Joanna, to introduce the topic. So I'm glad to be here. I am Thomas Nivert. I am French. I am leading a loan mortgage agency based in Paris and dedicated to international buyers in France. So 100% of our activity is devoted towards foreign buyers. We identified this as a gap 10 years ago, considering that somehow the industry wasn't able or willing to do and attend this segment, and so we decided to focus in this in this segment. So who we are, the agency, to be fair, was created by my wife 10 years ago. I had a different career before, and we lived as an expat in different countries. So we experienced also of living abroad, doing some investment remotely in France, and the difficulty of dealing with banks and dealing with different partners. Today, we are established in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. We are a team of 6 analysts, and we are dealing only with foreigners. So we are handling something like 100 nationalities, US included. That's probably 25% of our activities, and very various of profiles from pensioners to employed to consultant to chef d'entreprise, entrepreneurs. Okay, so we are able to fine tune and get different financing tool for different people. When you come to France and you want to buy a house, as Joanna said, I think there is always the opportunity to leverage on local debt, okay, on local mortgage loan. It's important to understand that the France is open, okay, in by regulation. It's open to foreigners. Whoever is coming to France to buy a property can. Whoever is buying a property can leverage on the local debt, local loan or mortgage. Okay, so by law and by regulation, it's possible and it's available. Now, when it comes in practice, the difficulty is what? Retail banks are not necessarily trained. The people might be excited to speak a little bit in English, but on and over, okay, they don't really know the rules. They don't exactly know which paper they have to ask you, and they might not be in good position to really understand your project or communicate. So the risk is that your application might end up on the desk on the side and not moving, and then the clock is ticking, and then your application is not moving. So that's unfortunately the situation in most cases. So what we do at Société de Courtage is we have a specific partnership with different banks in France and in Europe, where we are able to file your application, submit it, and get the paper moving. So that's what we do. Now, what is the market look like? And I think it was very well introduced before. We see that the market dynamic, okay, is kicking off in 2025. First, if we look at this chart, so the gray line is the rate at which banks are buying money. So you can see that over the years of 2018 till 2022, this rate was just ridiculously low. Okay, that was very good for France, and since 22, the rate has increased quite significantly. What we see is the financing rates for the bank is increasing. So at the time, the rate for the end users is reducing. So we are in a very interesting situation. The red line is the average borrowing range, okay, for a 10 years loan. So we are at a crossroad where effectively the market is likely to pick up and the rate is likely to re-increase in the near future. But for now, I think the Q1 2025, it's very promising. We see the number of loan production has picked up by 48% compared to a year ago. The value of this loan production has picked up by 52%. So effectively, it seems that for Q1, there is something changing, and finally the market is picking up. Again, I think it's important. You may hear from different sources about the rate and so on. It's important to understand that as a foreigner, as a non-resident, you cannot really avail the best interest rate. Okay, there is a small premium that applies to foreigners, and it is at least I think in all countries. Still today, we are financing US client in the range of 315 to 375. Okay, that's the range where we are financing customers, and we believe it will remain for the next 1 or 2 quarters in this direction. Going forward, it's probably by the end of the year, it's probably likely to be back to 4%, which is still low for a US customer, but which is high, okay, for French people. I think the terms are still favorable. 2025, despite of some kind of turbulence globally, we can see that as a loan broker, the terms are still favorable in the sense that the premium is still relatively low, okay? And the loan to value is still in a range of 70%. Don't take it for granted. Very good profile can go to 90%. Some other where the people may be more advanced in the age or have a less capacity to provide collaterals may get a little bit lower, but you may consider this LTV as somewhere plus minus 70%. What can you buy? So who can buy? Well, pretty much everybody can buy. You can be single, you can be married, you can be active or retired. It's still possible. There is no age limit as such. Still, there is a limit of 75 years old. So most banks will look at that the loan should be repaid when you reach the age of 75 years old. We can go across this. It depends. So it is application per application. Going across this might require a little bit more of collaterals or any kind of guarantee to be provided to the bank. What can you buy? So you can buy one of those nice master house in the countryside. You can buy a flat, a villa. Pretty much everything is available. You can buy a vineyard as well. It is something that we finance. how can you do that? What we need to show and demonstrate to the bank is that you have the capacity to repay and fulfill the loan obligation. And once you have done that, you still have decent money for your living. Okay, so nothing really special from a bank. It's only that, yeah, the paperwork and so on makes that, as a foreigner, it's difficult to fill up those forms and submit your application by yourself. Now, just to understand, so what we do, the luckiest of France compared to the US is that France, due to its social politics and so on, has been consistently over the years offering very low interest rate compared to US, but not only, I think to all British Commonwealth countries, where the difference is that in the US or in the UK, you will have in 2 weeks your loan that is available on your bank account. In France, it will take 3 months, but the interest rate will probably be somewhere 2 points lower of what you will get in the US. So the value proposition for us is really that we will do kind of a financial planning, making sure that you keep your money invested in your country of residence, where you will probably get a higher return, and you bring in France only what is needed to finance your project. Okay, so it's a kind of balance where you take the best of both worlds. You keep your money invested where you get the highest return, and you borrow the money where you get the lowest loan. So that's a very advantageous. To give you an idea, most of you know, if you are refinancing maybe one of your property in the US, you will borrow somewhere at 6%. So compared to a loan in France at 3%, in this example, you can see the difference of interest that you are paying over the period. Okay, you can see also the impact on the monthly payment, which is quite significant. So that's really something that you can take advantage when you are buying a property in France. Now, I'm going to show you 3 examples of financing for a property of 1 million euro. Okay, so that's relatively easy. The first one will be that against a 1 million euro loan, okay, you will have to provide 40% collateral to the bank. And so you can see the interest, the total loan interest and the monthly repayment. So that's something where you provide 40% collateral and the banks give you 100% of the house value. In the next example, we see that you may also put a down payment of 30%, which will mechanically reduce the size of the loan and reduce the monthly repayment. So this is another possibility for US nationals when buying a house to do and to go with this kind of things. The third one, which we like very much, is to go on this interest only. This interest only can go for 10 years. And we believe it's very good because you may come in France if you are in the 60s and to say, okay, we are buying a property, we have it on for 10 years. It won't cost us much because we only repay the interest. And then we have the time to see what we want to do with this property. And 10 years is still a long period of time to enjoy France, to be here, and then to decide how you want to do at the end, either to refinance it or maybe to sell it back. Okay, so if you look at the financial charges, a 1 million property will cost you only 3,333 euros per month as for a duration of 10 years, which is relatively cheap. Now, Joanna has presented the process on buying a house, so I won't go back to it. So effectively for us, the process is relatively simple. It is something that can be done completely remotely. We rarely see our customers. They are split around the world. So the entire relationship is done remotely. We have a discovery phase where we align with you about the overall envelope, okay, the budget for which you can go for, what will be roughly the terms, and so the financial structure of the loan. And once your offer is accepted by the seller, then we go into this due diligence. We collect a lot of documents. You need to be ready that banks in France want to know pretty much everything about your life. Okay, so sometimes that makes people a little bit uncomfortable, but somehow the system is like this. They are going very deep into the verification and so on and so on. And then there is a back and forth. You can expect within a month, 6 weeks to get a first kind of offer from the bank on which we align. And then there is a bank account opening. Again, everything is done remotely. And the release of the fund to the notary, it's done remotely. And eventually, if for some reason you cannot attend the signature of the notary, we can have somebody that represents you. So somehow you may get and do the visit with Leggett, and all the banking process will be done remotely. And once you are available, you come and collect the keys. Okay, so you don't have to be there thanks to the technology. And effectively, the process is about three to 4 months. So buying a property in France is relatively easy. And I think the advantage is that you can rely on the mortgage loan locally, which is relatively cheap. And there is, I think, competent people at your side who are here to help and make the process easy. So I thank you very much. If you have some question, I am happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Thomas. You make it sound easy. I think people think about financing and they get nervous, but I think it's more achievable than people thought. So thank you so much for the presentation. We do have a question for you. When considering salaries to qualify for a mortgage, if you work in the US, do they need some sort of documentation that you could work remotely from France?
Alors, yes, if you plan to relocate, once again, we are financing many Americans, many foreigners who are buying the house just to use it from time to time, to rent it, to use it. So it depends. What we will is effectively we will need an employment contract, salary slip, tax return, and so on to demonstrate that you have a stable and recurring income, okay, in your country. But you may not have even to come to France, okay? Buying a property and coming to France is two different subjects, okay? So they are not necessarily attached, and you can buy a property and you can use it the way you want to come or not to come, to rent it, not to rent it. Okay, so that's two different topics.
Perfect, thank you. Next question we have is, what is the minimum loan your company will consider?
Alors, there is no, as such, there is no minimum loan. I believe we have been doing some project even below 100,000 euros, okay, for some clients. Still, it's important to understand that depending on the nationalities and the countries of residence you are in, okay, there is a higher due diligence for the bank. So if you come with an application for, say, 200,000 euros, it might be less exciting for the bank, okay, to take a customer on which there is a higher compliance and due diligence and so on and so on. So I would say that the threshold is somewhere 300,000 euros. That will be roughly the line. But again, there is no formal minimum for any project.
Okay, perfect, very good. Next question for you, Thomas. Can I get a buy-to-let mortgage in France?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay, perfect. That was easy. We covered that off. Well, I think you might have a few more questions pop up in the Q&A, Thomas. So if you can go through those at your leisure to make sure everyone's questions are answered. But merci beaucoup for your presentation.
Super, merci.
And we will go on next to Kelly Cutchin with Moneycorp. Kelly will discuss currency exchange. We're going to go through currency exchange advice, how this can affect your property budget, how to plan ahead and maximize the exchange rate. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Eva. I hate that I have to follow such beautiful accents, but here we go. My name is Kelly Cutchin. I am the country manager here at Moneycorp in North America. I look after the US and Canada, but I've now been with Moneycorp for 20 years, and I say that I have helped people all over the world buy and sell real estate all over the world. So I'm excited to hopefully educate you on my experiences and hopefully bring you some tips for to be a part of your journey. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. First, Moneycorp, we're a UK-based company, and we have been trading in foreign currency exchange since the late 1970s. And last year, Moneycorp traded over 90 billion in over 120 different currency pairs. So we're assuming that most people on this webinar today are from the United States. But if you are from Canada, or perhaps you're going to be using funds from another country, it is likely that Moneycorp can assist, and we'd be happy to follow up with you on that. We do have teams in 11 countries, and I say that there are few industries that are as highly regulated as a foreign currency exchange company. So it's great to know that you're working with someone that has been in business for so long and obviously takes compliance and regulations very seriously. I am going to try to fly through a few of these slides because I want to be mindful of the time. And there's a couple of slides that I find really juicy, so I want to make sure that I have plenty of time to go through theirs. But this is just a quick visual. We do have offices around the world. We do have staff in, as we mentioned, 11 different countries. But again, being able to trade 120 different currency pairs, we don't necessarily have to have a physical office wherever you are selling or buying or wherever you're transferring funds to or from. I do invite you, as everyone does, to check out our website. There's some good resources on there. Again, overseas property guides, but also dependent on how deep you want to dive into the currency exchange markets, you can find as little or as much information as you would like there on our website. Today, we are obviously talking about property, but it is worth mentioning that Moneycorp is able to assist for transactions that are unrelated to real estate. So perhaps sending a child to study abroad, receiving an inheritance, you name it, if it's an international payment requirement over $250, that is our minimum, it is likely that we can help. All right, here's one of those juicy ones that I want to spend some time in. People often say, well, my bank can help me with an international transfer. Why would I use Moneycorp? And there's a few really easy things to point out. First and foremost, if you were to use your bank to make an international transfer, they will likely charge you an international wire fee. Now, this isn't a huge expense in the grand scheme of things, but it is a fee, and it is one that we can help you avoid. Moneycorp has local settlement accounts. So as an example, from the US, you would transfer US dollars into a US dollar bank account based in the United States, removing that international component altogether. So hopefully we can help you cut down on a fee there. Moneycorp does not charge any fees. The next thing is margins. There's something known as the interbank rate of exchange. If you Google the exchange rate, what you see online is likely the interbank rate of exchange. And that's the exchange rate that big banks are buying and selling currency at. But unfortunately, that's not the exchange rate that you or I would have access to. Moneycorp, due to the volumes in foreign exchange transactions that they do annually, does have access to that rate of exchange. The difference is when the bank sells the currency to you. US banks especially are typically taking a margin no less than, I'd say, 3%. And it is not uncommon for us to speak to clients that are seeing the banks take a margin of anywhere from 3, 5 to 7, or dare I say 10% off of what the real rate of exchange is. This may be shocking to those based in Europe and the UK because, yes, their banks are doing the same thing, but their typical norm is more around 2, sometimes 3%. So here in the US, unfortunately, we're not going to get a good margin with a US bank. The great news, Moneycorp is a solution for this. Moneycorp typically works off of a less than 1% margin. So we're going to do our best to get you really, really close to that interbank rate of exchange, helping your money go further. Also with the bank, you just have to use the exchange rate that they're willing to offer you on the day that you want to make a transaction, whereas Moneycorp hopes to work with you throughout the journey from start to finish, so we can perhaps help you target a specific rate of exchange, or at least monitor the exchange rate on your behalf to help you make a better informed decision on when to actually convert your currency. We also have the ability to lock into an exchange rate for up to 2 years, and I'll show you an example of that here in just a moment. How it works, it's very simple to set up an account with Moneycorp, and at the end of my presentation, I will be flashing a QR code. Feel free to have your phone ready and click on that, but I'll also flash my contact information, and I am always available by phone or email to help you get started. But you're going to want to set up a no cost, no obligation account with Moneycorp, and we're actually going to introduce you to a dedicated currency exchange dealer. We don't want you to feel like this is something that you have to do blindly or on your own. We appreciate that it's your first time maybe doing such a large transaction. It's your first time buying an international property, and you need to know that you have a hand to hold throughout that journey. You would then send your US dollars into your Moneycorp account after you agree an exchange rate with your dealer, so there'd be no surprises. Those local dollars would come into your Moneycorp account. We'd convert them into euros, and then we'd simply send the euros wherever they need to go when you're ready for them to be sent. In most property purchase scenarios in France, Moneycorp is asked to transfer the euros directly to the notaire. And great news, if the notaire asks for any additional documents, such as an attestation letter, that is something that Moneycorp is happily able to produce for you. And again, whether we're sending €1 transfer to a notaire or 10 different euro transfers to different recipients in Europe, Moneycorp will never charge a transfer fee. All right, the fun stuff. We've got Emily here. Emily is buying a property in France. The purchase price is $500,000. I just wanted to visually show you quickly the numbers that we're talking about. So yesterday I pulled the interbank rate. The bank was quoting an exchange rate of 1.17. Simultaneously, Moneycorp was quoting a rate of around 1.14. So you see the difference. It is really important that you make sure that you're seeking out other options when making these international transfers, because we could have saved Emily here $15,000 just by offering her our rate of exchange versus her going through the bank. Again, we're not going to charge any fees. The bank would also charge a fee on top of that. And we can, of course, provide you with statements and such. Jumping over to Scott. Scott here is buying a property in France as well. He is purchasing a property for 350,000 euros. And I just wanted to illustrate quickly the importance of monitoring the exchange rate. Don't make this something that you don't think of until you're ready to act, because a lot can happen between now, where you're searching for properties, and the time that you do need to transfer over a deposit or funds to actually do that closing. So look at here. You know, yesterday we were at a rate of 1.14. That means it's going to cost you $1.14 to get €1. So this 350,000 euro property yesterday was going to cost you about $399,000. Back in August, the rate was 109. Maybe we would have talked to you about locking into the rate to eliminate this risk of the rate moving against you between August to now. And then if you're really proactive and you would have been thinking about this a year in advance, back in April of last year, we were down at 1.06. And again, that means that we could have locked into that rate, meaning the property would cost you $371,000 versus $399,000 now. Again, we can lock into a rate of exchange for up to 2 years. Looking at this graph, it's really just to show you that the market is extremely volatile. There's lots of things that impact the exchange rate, and we certainly expect more volatility over the coming months and years. So we want to help you to kind of monitor these rate movements and help protect you from a negative rate fluctuation. People ask me all the time what impacts the exchange rate, and it's sort of like what I'm having for dinner. And that's really the only thing that doesn't impact what what's happening in the exchange rate world. You've got things like political stability, economic recession, government debt, inflation, stock markets, and that T word that we're all getting very familiar with these days, tariffs, right? So a lot of things are impacting the exchange rate. And the great news, our currency dealers here are watching all of this very closely and happy to educate you along the way. We obviously also know that there's lots of reasons why Joanna is seeing more and more Americans come to France to purchase real estate. Some people are going to Europe for golden visas, some digital nomads, some just love Paris, ourselves included. Some are going for the healthcare, the lifestyle, you name it. There's lots of reasons, but Europe is definitely an exciting topic right now, and Americans are certainly interested in France. As I mentioned, I wanted to just quickly flash up my contact information. Please don't hesitate to send me an email or give me a call. That's my cell phone number. I'm always available. I want to make sure that your journey goes smoothly. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And lastly, I just wanted to flash up this QR code. If you are interested in setting up an account, there is no cost or obligation, and you'll be able to have direct access to your dedicated currency exchange dealer to talk about your potential overseas property plans. And I'm sure they'd be happy to give you some expert guidance along the way. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you, French Entree, for putting on such a wonderful webinar as always.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That was a lot of useful information. And actually, I'm not going to start with a question for you, but you have an endorsement from a fan. There's a gentleman by the name of Frank. He says, not a question, but just an endorsement. After the last French Entree presentation I watched, I became a client of Moneycorp, and they've been great. So there you go. It looks like this
Hi,
is
Frank.
working.
Thank you.
But now a real question for you. How can I protect myself from currency exchange rate fluctuations?
There's a couple of things. You don't have to lock into an exchange rate immediately. If you have some time, Moneycorp can help you target a rate of exchange that's perhaps better than what is available at this moment in time. So again, have a discussion with your currency dealer, tell them your ideal rate of exchange, and then go about putting your other ducks in a row, and we will notify you if that target rate becomes available. When that occurs, you could then talk to your currency dealer about locking into the rate of exchange. That's a forward contract. In the scenario of a forward contract, you would only need to give Moneycorp a 10% deposit that offsets the total amount of euros that you ultimately are looking to purchase. And then you have time to feel secure that the exchange rate is locked in, and then you only need to transfer the other 90% balance on or before this future date in which time you need those euros to become available. So if you are concerned about the rate, you're seeing what's happening with the dollar right now, there's a few things you can do. You can target a rate. You can go ahead and buy euros and leave them on your Moneycorp account. There's no length of time. There's no maximum amount of time that you can leave that euro balance there. Or 3, speak to the currency dealer to find out if a forward contract is the right option for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kelly. I will go through, and actually we have a few more questions we'll try to squeeze in before our hour. I'm going to jump back over to Joanna, if that's okay. Joanna, what sort of closing costs should one expect?
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Yeah, so you would be looking at, so the price that you see advertised usually includes your agency fees there, and if it doesn't, it will say the vendor's paying the fees or the buyer's paying the fees. So either way, that's the total cost that you're going to pay. However, you are going to have your notaire fees on top of that, and the notaire fees can vary between sort of 7 and 10% to the value of the property, not including the fees. So that is that's the only extra charge that you're going to have. Of course, you might be paying fees on, other, if you were getting a solicitor or a lawyer involved. You don't actually need to in France because the notaire is neutral. They work for the government and they're basically tax collectors. Only a certain percentage of that fee goes to the notaire. The rest is the stamp duties and taxes, etc. that's involved. So you would need to look at the notaire fee. And there may be some taxe foncière. So there are 2 taxes in France, a tax habitation and a taxe foncière. And the tax habitation, whoever's in the house on the 1st of January pays that. If you're a permanent resident, you don't pay tax habitation anymore. If it's a holiday home, you do. And that's for whoever's in the house on the 1st. And for the tax foncier, it's pro rata. So if you bought the house in June, you may be asked to pay from June to December for the tax foncier. And you can find out what the tax foncier is before you even buy the house, because it'll be the same, usually, generally speaking, every year. So nothing else. There's no hidden extras. There's nothing that's going to come up and bite you at the end of the sale. It will just be your notaire fee. And you can find out the notaire fee at the same time, because it will actually go into the exchange of contracts, the compromis de vente, what that fee will be.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joanna. I will jump over to Thomas. I believe you may have answered that one in typing, but just to say it out live for people, can you finance a construction loan?
Alors, yes, we can with some limitation. In this question, effectively, we need to know if it is new built. What is quite common here is there is a construction program, and you buy ahead of the construction, so it's a new build. It's a good advantage because you normally have a reduced notary fee, which goes from 8 to 2%, if not even 0, if you negotiate a little bit. And so if the question was about, okay, I buy a land and I build up a villas on it, yes, it's possible, but it comes with more limitation. The bank will be checking more carefully about who is the builder and so on, because it's in a way attract more risk for the bank in case the construction is not being finished.
Okay, perfect. And one more for you, Thomas. I think I know the answer, but should I get pre-approved before starting the property search?
Well, I think it's really advisable. It's advisable for yourself in order to know to what limit you can go, what kind of loan structuration can you avail, and I think it's very valuable for the agent in order to position yourself as a serious, credible buyer, showing that you made the effort to consult some professionals in order to validate your profile.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I did see, I think, 1 or 2 questions that had more of a legal topic to it, which if you do have those types of questions, please do send them. The French Entree team will definitely connect you with the right sources to get those answered. And in addition, if you have any more questions for any of our panelists, please don't hesitate to stick them in the Q&A, and we'll make sure to get to it as soon as we can. But that's all the time we have for today. So thank you, everyone that attended. Thank you for our wonderful panel. You all did amazing. Thank you for giving up your time and answering questions. And again, if we didn't get to your question, please forward them to, you can email us at webinar@frenchentree.com, and we will forward it to each relevant panelist so they can answer that. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, keep an eye out for more French Entree webinars over the coming months. Remember, if you want to discuss your personal situation with one of our French Entree property and relocation advisors, you can also become a French Entree member. You can find out more about that at frenchentree.com/members. Thank you one more time to everyone, and hopefully see you on the next webinar.